Now, what I said in the title may sound a bit disappointing for you, depending on how well you know the topic, or you may have expected this, but nevertheless, it is still disappointing that even though the Bose science does check out that more volume equals more mass, but sadly, as I've learned, that doesn't check out. And I have tried 300 sit-ups all in one go in attempts to get jacked, get muscle, more specifically a six-pack. But now that I've tried, I know a bit better, as well as more experience with working out. Now, the reason why I got up to 300 sit-ups all in one go is it's kind of too far-fetched to say muscle dysmorphia, but it was more so to put on more size, get more shredded, get more jacked, all that lingo. But it just made sense that before, when I was doing less, I was noticing less results, and as I was increasing the volume, increasing the effort, I was finding that I was growing a lot more. So I started doing 300 sit-ups. Now, I didn't do it for that long because 300 sit-ups is quite taxing, and it's not the easiest thing to keep on going without rethinking about it. So the times I did have to think about it after I'd work out and before I was working out thinking about it, gave me time to process that this is probably not going to work. Now, was it hard doing 300 sit-ups? Well, both yes and no. It depends how strict you're going with sit-ups. Because personally, I know people who don't worry about their form as much and kind of seesaw, if you know what I mean. And then there's people who go up against a wall to make sure their legs don't move and keep their knees really high to make it as hard for them as possible. But for me personally, it was a bit of both. See, when I was doing 300 sit-ups, not as in I was doing sets and reps that added up to 300, but 300 all in one go. What happens is that you fatigue pretty quickly. You try and go at it with a strict perspective to try and get the most out of the workout by having strict form, which is a good idea for most workouts, trying to think of form over the actual weight or the actual rep. But once you start doing sit-ups over and over again, mentally you start thinking about how you're going to need to do this 200 more times, and you start bringing down the intensity so that you can last for those 200 more sit-ups. And then a lot of the time you'll overcompensate for that, and you'll notice after you've put in all that work for 300 sit-ups, you might have gotten lazy, you might have slacked on it a bit and haven't even reaped the benefits of doing 300 sit-ups properly. But it was more like you had the first 100 really well, but you kind of just went off at the end. And it is pretty close to the right thing, trying to shorten the amount of reps to get higher intensity at the start. But even 100 sit-ups all at once is still too high of an intensity to go through optimally. And now what I've started doing is putting it right down to 100 sit-ups in total, not all at once. And I've even thought about bringing the reps even lower for higher intensity, shorter reps and more sets. So what I do is 5 sets of 20, and that allows me to still have that high intensity, but by the end of the set I can start feeling myself break down a bit, especially at the last half. So not just with sit-ups, but with any other workout like bench press, anything like that, volume will almost never equal more mass or more rewards. It's more based off how well you can balance intensity with breaking down the muscle, because you can go really hard or you can go for really high weight, but if you're not balancing it so that your muscles are still feeling what they should be like, what they should be able to do, like lift that amount or do that many sit-ups, it's going to really halt your progress, and you might get pretty frustrated, and you might get into the trap of thinking that you're slacking off with working out, which can kind of get messy. But I'm just here to tell you now, as someone who's done it, it's definitely worth taking it a bit easy. Like, it's a bit of a taboo to say that for working out, but especially for the things where you're doing hundreds of reps, like there is almost a better way.